Good evening. Hello. How are we? Just adjusting my microphone. Is everybody well? Is everybody healthy? Today's live feed is as promised. The other day, Natalie, how are you? Thank you for joining. The other day on a live feed, Ricardo, how are you, my friend? Good to have you here. We spoke to what men need from their women. Craig, how are you, my friend? Jackson, welcome. People, as you're coming on board, please, I'm just having a look at something, sorry. As you're coming on board, please let me know how you're feeling. Let me know, are you happy today? Are you sad? Are you angry? Are you frustrated? Are you feeling in love with life, with self? Put an emoticon in the comments and let me know how you're feeling, because your depth of feeling will allow us to connect. Your depth of feeling will allow us to impart wisdom and knowledge in a very particular way, and the way it's assimilated will be very different as well. So please feel free to connect to self and let me know how you're feeling. Yeah, pop something in the comments there. But today's topic is something that is very, very dear to me, very close to my own heart, and something that I have been moving through personally myself for quite some time. And it's really it's really understanding self. It's really understanding where we are as human beings and how we wish to move through life. What type of people do we want to be? This is the deeply important question that we must be asking ourselves, is who do we wish to be in life? How do we wish to treat ourselves? How do we wish to treat others in relationship, and any form of relationship, not just one type or one form of relationship. Odie, how are you? Thank you for joining. Hey guys, as you're coming on, let me know how you're feeling. Put a comment in the comments box. Yeah. Let's connect. Let's get clear on where we are today. Tennille, thank you for joining. I really appreciate it. So, a deeply important subject matter is what the masculine must give the feminine. So, I'm going to use these terms interchangeably today. What the masculine must give the feminine, what men must give women, in order to reach an equilibrium, in order to reach a common mutual ground and understanding. And we must learn as men to first and foremost connect to ourselves and connect to our own feminine, because if we cannot do that, we lose touch with what others need. We lose touch with what we must be for others, but essentially it is what we must be for ourselves. So I want to jump in, and I want to say firstly that this is a deeply important subject matter to me, and something that has affected me deeply in my own life and the way I've interacted with others, especially the sacred and the beautiful feminine. And it's life is a learning journey, of course. Life is something that we often take for granted, and we often neglect the intricacies of life, and paying very close attention to who we are and who we must be in life. And we lose an integral part of self when we simply do not follow our intuition, or we are not authentic in our own posturing, or we don't really pay attention to what our authentic, our congruent needs are in life. And that can affect the way we behave in relationships, and it affects the way we treat ourselves and interact with ourselves as well. And it places a wedge between us, and as men, it places a wedge between us as men and the women in our lives, the beautiful women in our lives, and the sacred feminine within ourselves and within the women in our lives. So Lisa, how are you? Thank you for joining. So it becomes important, in fact, it becomes crucial to connect to self and to feel exactly what it is that we need. But in my own experiences, there have been times and gaps in my life where I haven't been able to deeply appreciate, acknowledge, respect, honor the sacredness of the feminine. Thank you, Davina. Davina's praying and there's a flower there, so that's a good thing. Clifton, mind is important. I tell it to my fans and skeptics. Healthy mind is everything, Clifton, and thank you, brother, for your own vulnerability there. And in fact, the fact that you've just mentioned that there, you've stepped into your own vulnerability is one of the 10 things that men must be for women is be vulnerable. The masculine must be vulnerable to the feminine, to allow the feminine to do its work, to do its beautiful work, to do its best work, to simply be authentically who she is. And that's a beautiful place to be. So thank you for sharing, Clifton. Deeply appreciate that. So I want to move into the first thing that men must give and must be. Nat, thank you very much for sharing that. Let me know how you're feeling, guys. Drop a comment there in the comments box. And if you have any questions as well, speak to them, write them out. Let's discuss these. This is going to get interesting. So the first one is attentiveness. We must be attentive. So guys, if you want a few seconds, I'll speak to attentiveness. But if you want a few seconds, grab a pen and a paper. This is cool, especially for the men out there, yeah. Because when I'll look after you, Johnny. You'll be okay, brother. I promise. When men in particular are able to present themselves in a deeply authentic way, life opens up. Thank you, Carla. It opens up dramatically. It opens up deeply and profoundly. So the first thing that men must do, or the masculine must do for the feminine, is simply be attentive. Be deeply, sincerely attentive to the feminine, to the woman, and to women in their lives. That attentiveness is everything. Attentiveness to the needs of the feminine. And the needs of the feminine will fluctuate and they will flow, and that's what the feminine does. And unfortunately, as men, we sometimes get very deeply rigid in our own structure, and we can't understand this oscillation or this change or this transformation, and we think that something is wrong or something is not right, but it's actually perfect just the way it is. And acknowledging that and being deeply respectful of that in that place, and knowing the feminine deeply in that space, and being attentive to her needs as they fluctuate, as it flows every moment of every day. That's beautiful. That's empowering for the feminine within and for the feminine in our lives, the women in our lives, yeah? So the second thing that men must do, and men must do really well, is to make known to the feminine, to the women in our lives, that they are deeply valued, that they are deeply revered, that they are deeply respected, that they are deeply known, they are seen. And it's in that so much power can transpire, so much deep connection can take place. It opens up our hearts as men, and we'll speak to heart opening later, but to know that she is valued is so crucial in relationship for the woman, for the feminine. And it's something that unfortunately I haven't been able to do as... Well, it's not unfortunate. It is what it is, I suppose. But I haven't been able to fully embrace in my own relationships, and even in my relationship to self, to acknowledge and value the feminine within myself, and give it enough credence and enough value to allow it to flourish and to allow it to be what it needs to be. And when we allow the feminine to flourish, wow, it changes the way, the dynamic of the relationship, the communication increases, the depth, the breadth of the relationship improves, expands. We move into this state of wholeness almost. It's a beautiful, transient space to be in. It really is. So thank you, Car. Thank you for joining. Please let me know how you're feeling, guys. Drop a comment in the comment box. And if something's resonating with you now, please write this down. especially men, it can make the world of difference to your lives and to your relationships. It can enrich beautifully your relationships. I promise you, I've been down this path. I've watched and observed others as well go down this path, and it's an interesting place to be. Yeah. So cool. That's a little bit better, a little bit more light. So the third thing that men must do is we must be willing to hold our women through their fears and through their insecurities. We must be willing to hold our women through their uncertainty. As Danielle says, a commitment, affection, honesty. Women are attracted to men for these things. Also communication, security. Beautifully said, Danielle, and thank you so much for sharing. It's deeply appreciated. And you're absolutely right. And we're going to speak to all of that communication piece and the honesty piece as well. We're going to speak to all of that. But willing to hold our women through fears, willing to hold the feminine through the feminine's insecurity, willing to hold the feminine through her pain and her uncertainty, because we all experience that. So if you relate this to yourself, people, whether you're a woman or a man, it's being open to holding yourself through pain and fear and insecurity and uncertainty. That which I am, and being open to that, embracing that, fully embracing the fact that it's okay to be feeling pain and fear, and to know when a woman knows that her man is there for her, that the masculine is there for the feminine. When the woman deeply knows this, the feminine deeply understands this and feels this more so, it changes completely the way that relationship plays out. It truly does. It deeply does, yeah? And if you can resonate with that, if you feel that, that's power. Yeah, that's an empowered relationship. So the fourth thing that men must do, and this is important, yeah. There must be a complete love and wholeness. There must be a completeness in our love and our wholeness within ourselves towards our women and for our women. And when we do this, again, we allow the feminine to be fully in herself. We allow the feminine to be fully in her flow. And it is that flow that gives us, in fact, we think that the masculine provides stability for the feminine, and it most certainly does. But when the feminine is in flow, it allows the masculine to be stable. It allows the masculine to be in strength and in complete posturing and power and truth and direction and clarity. So it's that love towards the feminine, towards our women with complete wholeness. And we must show the woman this. She must be able to observe it, feel it, connect to it, be a part of it at every level. And that's our job, our posturing, our responsibility as men to do that, or as the masculine to do that, to move deeply into that. And that's deep, Carla, like from 3D to 5D relationships and beyond. Yeah. And look, I truly believe that these simple, and there's more than just 10 things. Yeah. Of course, there's probably hundreds. But if we assume these postures, and we assume them with depth, and we assume them with sincerity and honesty and transparency, authenticity, congruency, and self, we get closer and closer to evolving and expanding ourselves. Yeah, absolutely, Danielle. Absolutely. Danielle says that, and that's the thing. We speak about masculine and feminine, but let me be really clear. It's one and the same. It's very much, once we get the healthy masculine and healthy feminine in balance, light and dark of each, we become whole. It's just for language sakes. It's just for us to understand and explain and elaborate upon, and to give a structure, because we're such language-orientated beings. We're such cognitive beings that we must understand and learn through cognition, which is a very masculine trait, which of course has, if we look back at history and our cultural constructs over time, we can see that we are a very deeply patriarchal, masculine society. And that's what needs to change. Men need to come and step back into their vulnerability, back into their openness. And I've been in the past, I've been deeply rigid myself and deeply in my masculine and probably most of the time my unhealthy masculine, where I've had anger, for example, and I've allowed that to transmute into rage and suffering, and I've been an extremely aggressive person because I haven't understood myself, I haven't understood my own inner self, my own inner being. And it affects the people in our lives, and it compounds, and it breaks them down, and it breaks our own evolution of self down. And if you believe in a soul or in soulment, then it breaks our soul down as well, and it destroys us. But sometimes the only way through, or the only way to wholeness, or the only way to opening is through destruction. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Carol. I apologise for that. Well, apologise on behalf of Facebook. I'm hoping that maybe there's an internet connection, or maybe jump off the Wi-Fi. Mark, how are you? Thank you for joining. Yeah, I hope that can be rectified. So the fifth thing that men must give women, that men must give their women, and obviously the masculine must give the feminine, yeah, is to listen openly without expectation. Danielle mentioned this earlier about communication, is to listen openly without expectation. I've developed a model for communication. I call it the conscious communication model. And there's 12 key tenets and 12 principles in this model. And we touch to very deep, open, sincere listening. And there's a very articulate way to communicate with the feminine, where the feminine and the masculine can be heard deeply and profoundly. And it's in this space that we learn to give to each other. And again, if I reflect on my own experiences, when I've been caught in that, over the years, I've been caught in that, it makes me sad thinking about it, that unhealthy masculine, where I've just wanted to win a fight, or win an argument, or demonstrate that I have a superiority, or that I am right, I'm correct. And in that space, we become so self-absorbed and so selfish that we lose sight of actually what is deeply important, and that is to be of service to our own selves and to be of service to humanity, to be of service to the people that are important in our lives, especially the women, because there is such beautiful gifts that the woman has, that the feminine energy carries, that if we don't allow that to flourish, if we are in constant friction and we are arguing with the feminine retracts and shuts down. And when she shuts down to herself, she's shutting down to us. And I know this firsthand. I've shut my feminine down within myself, and I've shut the women in my life down in the past, and without even knowing it. And Jackson says, it really does change the dynamic, brother. I have no woman in my life, but I've done some diving into the feminine, and the realizations I've had has led me to this moment and the deeper, more profound connections. Absolutely agree, brother. When we go deep within ourselves, we're allowing others to venture and delve deep within our own soul as well, within our own mindscape. And it's a beautiful place to be when we are able to face our fears and then express them. And that actually leads me to the next thing, that as men, we need to face our fears. We have to. The masculine must face its fears. It must acknowledge, take ownership, delve into, be a part of, integrate, facilitate. Just face your fears and let your woman know, as part of your own authentic journey, she just wants you to be authentic, and she will find strength in you and stability in you. The feminine will find stability in the masculine when the masculine is open and honest and vulnerable. And that's the interchange of energies, or the interchange of roles. But we have to face our fears. We have to take ownership of them and say out loud, this is my fear and this is what I'm doing to equilibrate it, to understand it, to connect to it, to feel it, to be all I can with it, to move through it, because the only way is through. I've tried to go around it. I've tried to jump over it. I've tried to suppress it. I've tried to blame others. Men are very good at that. We are very good at projecting blame. It's an interesting psychological construct, actually, projection. And we project, and all we do is actually suppress deeper and deeper into the realm of the unconscious self, and that is where it all takes place. That is where our belief systems reside. That is where we are controlled, so to speak. And we lose conscious understanding and connection to these fears and to these pain points because we choose not to deal with them. We choose to let them go. And it affects every facet of our lives. Every facet. The next thing that men have to do, and for me this is probably one of the most important, is choose your woman. Choose the feminine deeply. Choose the feminine profoundly and let her know. Communicate that to her with everything you are. With everything you are, let her know that you choose her fully. When she feels safe and secure and stable and connected, she will be everything she can for the masculine in her life, for herself and for that man in her life as well. She'll be deeply, deeply connected to her man and her masculine. And she will flourish. She will be in flow. She will be creative. She will be and bask in radiance and beauty. Just because you've chosen her fully and you let her know, and you let her know every day, every moment that you can. Because when she has that certainty, the feminine thrives on certainty. The feminine thrives on that beauty, on that wonder of certainty and stability and strength, a pillar of strength, that knowing. Because the masculine is very good. When the masculine is healthy, the masculine is very good at being on purpose, living on purpose, living in purpose. And that's a beautifully attractive quality for the healthy masculine. When the healthy masculine has that clarity. The next thing that men need to impart to their women and give to their women, the masculine must give their feminine, is presence. It's an authentic, unwavering power and presence. People, if you're just coming on as well, let me know how you're feeling, yeah? Let me know if this information is resonating. Drop me a comment in the comments box. Ask any questions you may have. Let me know how you're feeling with an emoticon. Just let me know so I know I'm on track. But importantly, that the information is resonating, yeah? So that next thing is presence. So presence is a healthy masculine trait. And when the masculine provides that to the feminine, that authentic, unwavering power, the feminine flourishes. The feminine connects. The feminine is open. She's there. She supports. She creates. Not only is she creative, she creates. The feminine is responsible for a deep creative essence. And that authenticity in life, when we are authentic as men, in other words, we're not lying, we're not scared to be ourselves, to just be truthful. It changes the way the feminine interacts with us. For the vast majority of my life, I was incongruent and inauthentic with the women in my life. And I would say one thing and do the other. And I reached an apex point in life where I completely destroyed my own existence. And unfortunately, as a natural, that word unfortunately is pre-programmed conditioned language. But I also, in that moment, destroyed the certainty that the feminine yearned for, because I was not present. I did not maintain presence and hold presence. I was inauthentic and incongruent. And I did not have this unwavering power. But I feel very blessed that I have been able to grow and learn deeply and profoundly from that space, and learn and grow deeply from those experiences of not being what my heart truly wanted me to be, what my feminine was screaming for within. But as they say, we live and we learn. And I say this, I speak to this as a man now who is deeply transformed and has been for some time, deeply transformed and is learning. I'm always learning, like I'm learning and growing consistently, constantly, forever. And every day unravels new information as to how I could be, how I can be, how I wish to be, in greater alignment with who I know I am within. And we all have this capacity, and we are relational beings, people. We don't need to learn the hard way or the difficult way all the time. It's important sometimes, yes, because it gives us context and a reference point, but not all the time. We can learn profoundly from each other. So the next point, and it's the second last point of 10 that I've got, 9, point number 9, is to get lost in breath and to get lost in eye contact and eye gazing. Rachel, thank you for joining. It's good to see you on here. To get lost in breath and to get lost in the seat of the soul, as it's called in many different disciplines, in many different esoteric pillars, is to lose ourselves in breath and lose ourselves in our eyes. And spending that sacred time with your woman is one of the most amazing experiences. And for men, it's really quite difficult because it's confronting. For most men, it has been for me in the past, and I'd be lying if I said sometimes, even now, it's not challenging, because it opens us up. So if we are incongruent as men in our masculine, or if the masculine is incongruent, it's unhealthy, it's not clear, it's not focused, it's not purposeful, it's not authentic. Eye gazing or moving into deep breath work, sharing breath with another, the feminine, can be confronting because it exposes us, it opens us up, it makes us vulnerable. So part of number 9 is being vulnerable. As men, we must be vulnerable and give that vulnerability to our women, because it softens the feminine and it allows her to be in her truth and in her power, in her authentic power as well. So we must be vulnerable as men. But over the years, we've equated, thousands and thousands of years, we've equated vulnerability as weakness. We've traded it, and it's interchangeable, weakness and vulnerability. And we cannot be weak because it will affect our ability to survive or self-preserve or be seen as a strong alpha male or be respected in society and culture, because respect, of course, is such an important trait for the masculine, to be respected. But if we are not vulnerable, we are not tapping into an integral part of who we are. We are not touching or reaching an important aspect of self. This one is deeply important as well, is to get lost in the feminine, in the flow of the feminine. And I promise you, people, when we do this, life changes. Life transmutes, transforms, becomes, Roz, how are you? Let me know how you're feeling. Becomes deeply, deeply connected. Becomes a connected practice. And the practice is knowing self, is being self-aware, is connecting openly to self. cannot emphasize. Hey Rosie, how are you? Lovely to see you. Let me know how you're feeling. Drop an emoticon in the comments box. That vulnerability piece, that ability to get lost in the eyes, in the soul of the feminine. To get lost, not lost from self, but to begin to fade all else out and be deeply, deeply focused. Steve, how are you? Let me know how you're feeling, brother. Drop a comment in the comment box. Good to have you here. Oh, Rosie, why are you sad? Let me know why you're sad. Let me know if we can be of service here in this live feed, yeah? Now I'm sad that you're sad. So part of this getting lost in this breath and this vulnerability is being empathetic, men. Is being deeply empathetic to the people in our lives, to the women in our lives, to the feminine in our lives. The video hasn't paused. I'm being silent on purpose. Because in silence, truth is revealed. In stillness, truth is revealed. This is so... I cannot emphasize how crucially important this is. To hold the feminine in our lives when she is not connected, when she is sad, when she is despondent, when she is uncertain, to hold her with strength and vulnerability. The feminine needs the openness. The feminine needs the presence. The feminine needs the breath and the eyes. Our eyes, in spiritual circles, in spiritual disciplines, in esoteric pillars, the eyes speak so much, so loudly. If you can give that gift to the feminine, to your woman, give her your eyes. Don't pull them out. I'm just being funny. But give them freely. Gaze deeply into her soul. Let her know. We link back to number 7, which is we are choosing your woman. You're choosing the feminine openly. I promise you, So Rosie said it's old relationship stuff, being able to hold space for a man. A man's feminine needs presence. And I feel like a failure that I couldn't hold his storm. Oh, Rosie. Oh, you've definitely touched a nerve, Rosie. You're not a failure, my love. You're definitely not a failure. And I honour you so deeply for just sharing what you've just shared now. And that people is the wonder and the beauty of the feminine. The vulnerability there that Rosie has expressed. The openness. The feminine within men need presence as well. And I have needed that in my life too. You're not a failure, Rosie. Davina says, I speak whispers from the heart. They certainly do. From the soul. I'm going to tell you why you're not a failure, because your intention is sincere. And you can only do what you can with what you have. And what you speak to right now, Rosie, is so deeply profound. And it's something that I've wondered a lot as well. In my previous relationships, I've asked deeply, please hold me through this fear. Please hold me through this fear. I've asked the women in my life to hold me through this fear. And sometimes it's overbearing. Because sometimes the healthy masculine is a little bit underdeveloped in the feminine. And it's not by any fault of hers in women. It's because of social conditioning and cultural conditioning and years of compounded repression that doesn't allow the feminine a woman to connect beautifully to her healthy masculine. And it's sad. And we've done that as men. And we have a responsibility to give what we can to our women when we can. Because when we do that, and we do it from a place of complete love and openness, we are not only changing the dynamic of our relationships, we're effectively transmuting and transforming ourselves deeply. See, what's sort of happening, Rosie, is that as you're feeling like a failure, and of course failure is the antithesis to success, and success is a very masculine orientated construct. You're jumping into your unhealthy masculine because you perhaps felt you couldn't be in your healthy masculine. Don't do that to yourself. Be with the feelings. People, when we're in this state, and it's so challenging, and I feel it almost every day. Just reading what Rosie... He held me through everything, and then when he was down or not strong enough, I feel like I gave up on him. I held the masculine for so long that when he was vulnerable, I couldn't hold it. Yeah. That's the thing. We as men, we want to fix everything. And the flow of the feminine doesn't need to fix anything. It just is. It is this beautiful, symbiotic flow that takes place. I resonate with you, Rosie. I deeply resonate with you, Rosie. You know, what you're speaking to right now, it's really, really close to home. It's deeply close to home. And I feel your pain, I really do, from the other end as well. From the other end. Number 10. The tenth thing that men must do is let the world know your deep affection for your woman. Let the world know, scream it out, be proud that you embrace and honour the feminine. Be proud and open that the feminine is in your life and is prominent and is present with you and is connected to you, and she chooses you. Be deeply connected to that space. Also, Rosie, sometimes it becomes overbearing to hold that space and hold that presence when we're not accustomed to it. Sometimes we go on doing it for so long that we forget how to flow, and we need to flow, and the urge to just flow is so important. But I honour your vulnerability, and I honour your openness and the example that you're setting for so many. Estelle, how are you? Thank you for joining. Let me know how you're feeling today. So they're the 10 things that men must give women. And yeah. There are many more, of course, but if we can focus on these 10 things as men and as holding masculine space within the feminine, I promise we can make a tremendous difference to our lives and to the lives of those that are in our lives, that are in our sphere of reality. I want to thank you all so deeply for being here, for being present, for interacting, for communicating, for sharing your thoughts and your wisdom and your vulnerable selves. And man, if there's just one thing, or the masculine within all of us, is one thing I can just say, just one, is come from heart as often as possible. Rosie, in your next live feed, I would love for if you could speak to what women can give to men. I would like to understand. I actually did one on Wednesday, Rosie. It was, I can't remember what I called it now. It was 6 Things Men Need from Women. It was on Wednesday, so you're more than welcome to have a look at that, my love. But I can do another one as well, yeah? Because there was something, it's funny that you mentioned that, Rosie, because there was something in that live feed that I didn't really speak to enough. And I bastardized my feeling state, which was my feminine. I communicated in a deeply masculine way, and I wish I hadn't. But if there's one thing, and I'll say this now, Rosie, and it's, yeah, and this may touch a nerve for many. It definitely touches a nerve for me. Is Rosie touched this? Thank you, Oliver. Rosie touched on this earlier, and she said that the feminine within us as men needs presence. It needs all these things that I've spoken to. It needs love. It needs space held for it. When men are going through fear, so I said earlier, number 6 was face your fears as men. And the last 2.5 years for me, thank you, Danielle. Thank you. The last 2.5 years for me have been immensely transformative. It's been a lot of pain and a lot of suffering, a lot of redefining of self, a lot of reconfiguring of self, complete destruction of self, reconnecting to self, trying to understand self, a very masculine trait, doing my best to feel self and coming from the heart more and more, just coming from heart. And to answer your question, Rosie, in that transition time, in my own personal experience, facing very deep fears, old stuff. Adrian, how are you, brother? It's good to have you here. Old stuff that has been around for 35 years. It's been punishing me. I've allowed it to punish me for 35 years, 33 years, 32 years. And as those fears come up, the women in our lives, we want them, as men, we want them to hold us, and we want them to maintain presence and be there for us while we explore these deep feelings of pain and suffering and fear. Fear just is so overwhelming. And it's hard for our women. And I have complete empathy for you, Rosie, in this case. Complete empathy. Complete compassion. It's not easy for our women, for the feminine to hold us through that space. And it's challenging. It's deeply challenging. And we cannot blame ourselves. We cannot blame ourselves for not being able to. We cannot blame ourselves. The women in our lives cannot. It's a learning. It's a deep experiential learning. And it comes with practice and revelation. And it comes through these experiences. And that we are blessed enough to have these experiences and learn and grow. When we begin to feel ourselves at greater depth, when we begin to understand this dichotomy and this interplay, we can better hold that space for our men as women. And as men, we can hold that space, unwavering space, and demonstrate that to our women so that they can do that and they can be that. And that becomes beautiful. It becomes a beautiful growth and expansion of self. A deep and complex conversation, that's for sure. But I want to thank you so much for being here. Wow, I've been going for way too long. Way too long. Many blessings on your journey, and I do hope that you have got something from this evening in some capacity. And please feel free to share, and feel free to comment, ask questions. But share this message if you believe in it. We begin to build a very strong, connected community of like-minded souls. There's many blessings and much love to all of you out there. And thank you so much for listening and taking time out of your day and your evening, your morning, wherever you are in the world to be here and obviously be of service with your own presence and your thoughts and your shared wisdom. And thank you so much. And as always, one is glad to be of service. Thank you.